Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 228, recorded live Monday, December 22nd, 2014. I am your host and Santa's little helper, Todd Klindt. Before we go any further, though, I have to thank my mysterious benefactor, though I guess they're really not that mysterious if I'm getting ready to tell you who they are. Rackspace. You can go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com and find out about all the great SharePoint services that we provide at Rackspace. Dedicated hosting, shared hosting, consulting, pretty much everything, you name it. We have videos out there. We have all kinds of how-tos, links to our blogs, the whole thing, everything you'd look for. That's all out at sharepoint.rackspace.com. They make all this possible. They provided me with the flags and the PowerPoint template and the monitor, not the Santa hat. I bought that myself. I didn't even expense it. This is all right out of my pocket. But sharepoint.rackspace.com, and they'll hook you up. For the production notes tonight, I only have a couple of things. So even though I'm not technically working this week, I still didn't get everything buttoned up for the production until Friday of last week for last Monday's Netcast. Sitting around doing nothing. Turns out that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I did a lot of that last week. Planning on doing a fair amount of it this week as well. We'll see. But with the holiday coming up, I'll try to get this all taken care of before Christmas Eve here Wednesday night. But I did want to mention that last week's episode, number 227, the video was horrible, terrible, awful. Though it did a great job of concealing my natural unattractiveness. So that worked out well for me. But turns out I had a bad internet connection. So just to give you a little behind the scenes that you don't even care about, here at the Klindt household, I have 2 internet connections. Since I work from home, having a solid internet connection is paramount to actually getting anything done. And I don't want to do the whole, my dog ate my homework all the time and make, when my internet doesn't work. And we've all had that. Every one of us that has internet connections at home or at work has had it flake out at some point. So I kind of go the belt and suspenders route. I have my main connection, which is a cable modem, which is like 100 megabit down and 20 megabit up or something like that. I forget. Big enough. It's a pretty good pipe. And then I have a backup pipe, which is DSL, which is like 10 meg down and like half a meg, 1 meg up, something like that. Not very much, if you know what I mean. And I flip-flop between them. If my cable modem goes down, I flip over to my DSL, so on and so forth. And I don't remember doing that lately, but somehow all of my machines here at home were set up last Monday to go out through my DSL. Now, through my normal day, especially since I wasn't working last Monday, of just, looking for new keyboard cat videos, things like that, I didn't notice the slow internet connection. But doing this netcast, as you can imagine, streaming this glorious video in high def with the blues and the other blues and then these blues too, all those blues, they take a lot of bandwidth, except I had my machine that was doing my netcasting going out through an itty-bitty little pipe, and so there just wasn't much video getting out. And last week in the chat room, some folks were like, oh, the audio is terrible, the video's crap. I thought those guys were just dumb, but then turns out after I got done with the netcast and downloaded it from YouTube, sure enough, the video was bad. Then I started doing some poking around, went to speedtest.net, and sure enough, I was going out through my DSL. So I've checked that tonight. I should have a checklist of things that I do before I go on air, and doing a speed test or making sure that my network's set up correctly is one of those things. But hopefully tonight, you'll be able to get all of the blues in beautiful Technicolor and all that, but hopefully that won't happen again. Lori, I told Lori about it, so she's going to remind me every night before I go on here to check my internet connection, because that's apparently something I need to do now. So sorry about that. The audio and the video should be better on this week's episode. Sorry about the drinking. I'm still kind of nursing a cold here a little bit. Throat's a little dry. Got to keep my instrument moist, and that whole deal. So this week, we're coming up on Christmas here. It's the 22nd. I don't know about you guys. I have a lot of Christmas shopping left to do, even some shopping for other folks, not just buying myself stuff, because nothing gets me in the Christmas spirit more than buying cool things for myself. But haven't done a lot of prep for tonight's show. Didn't even clean my desk off, as you can see. We'll talk about that here in a couple of minutes. and just have a few things to go over. We'll try to get you guys out early so you can get out, watch some Monday Night Football. I think the Broncos are playing tonight. Hate that Peyton Manning. Love Peyton Manning. Hate that Peyton Manning. Anyway, but just got a couple things, some stuff that I was going to talk about last week and didn't, and things like that. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and he's not in the chat room right now, is something that a friend of mine, Trevor Seward, wrote. He's in the chat room sometimes as Noplius Trevor. He writes a bunch of little tools. He does a bunch of admin stuff, but he's also got some developer chops, and so he writes some little tools. And he released a thing a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, turns out, called FoundationSync 2.5. Now, he'd released it before, but he did this upgrade to 2.5, and that came out on the 12th. This scratches a very particular itch that shows up in the SharePoint world. If you have SharePoint Server 2013 or SharePoint Server 2010 or MOS 2007, you know that you can do this profile import business. And the way that works is you've got a central spot either in your shared service provider or your user profile service application that goes out once a day, goes out to Active Directory, checks all the users that are out there. If any users' display names or email addresses or any of that funny business has changed in the last 24 hours, the profile sync grabs it, puts it in a central spot. So with MOS, it puts it in the SSP database. With SharePoint 2010 and 2013, it puts it in the profile database. And then a second job goes out and syncs that information from the profile database, syncs it out to all the content databases. Now, there's a bunch of crazy business that goes on there where site collections, if a database is set to offline, it won't be synced. The profile information won't sync. If a user is not active in a particular site collection, they won't get synced to that site collection because every site collection has its own user list and every content database has its own user info table, and that's what these things sync up. So we all know how that works if you've got SharePoint Server or SharePoint or MOS, but what if you've got Foundation? What if you're not paying for the whole enchilada, the whole big SharePoint Server deal? How does that get synced up? Well, the answer is it doesn't. If you've only got SharePoint Foundation, 2010 or 2013, when a user is first added to a site or the first time they edit something in a site because they've been added as part of a group, SharePoint goes out to your domain controller, pulls the information in for that user, for that snapshot in time, display name, email address, and all that, and then never does another thing again. And so that user's information in that site collection will always be that. Nothing ever gets changed. And that's if you have SharePoint Foundation. So there have been a number of different ways, PowerShell scripts and things like that to address that and go out and sync that. And that's what Trevor's Foundation Sync tool does, is it runs with Foundation and it goes out and syncs that information for you. Completely free tool that Trevor has released out there. It's kind of nice. I don't know a lot of people these days that are running Foundation, so I don't have anybody particular to suggest this to. But if you're out there, if you've got that, this is a great way to keep that all information all set up. So you can go to Trevor's blog at thesharepointfarm.com, and this was released on December 12th, so you can kind of go back through there and see what all that is. But thanks to Trevor. Trevor's written a bunch of crazy great tools. There's another one I'm going to talk about here in a couple of weeks after I've got a chance to test it. But thanks to Trevor again, normally in the chat room, but taking the night off. Gonna have to talk to him about that. But wanted to get that out there, give Trevor some props for that. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, so I've talked about here the last couple of weeks. Oh, just a second. Don't go anywhere. Oh. You guys didn't go anywhere, did you? Oh, whew, okay. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, something like that, that I was one of the lucky folks to get one of the Amazon Fire TV stick doohickey dealios. That's it, this right here, and it comes with a stylish remote. Ooh. Anyway, this is a little set-top box, hooks up to the HDMI connector on your TV, and micro USB power, and nothing else. There's no buttons, there's no dials, there's no buzzers, no lights. And it streams your media mostly from Amazon properties, Amazon Prime, that kind of stuff, but it also has applications for those other things. But deep down under the covers, its dirty little secret is that it's really just running Android. It's just Android. And so and the thing about this little guy, it's $20. $20 for Prime users. And it's also supposedly a Miracast receiver, though I've never gotten Miracast to work from a Windows device. But supposedly it'll do that too. But for $20 you get this. Stream all kinds of stuff, HBO to go, Netflix, all that kind of stuff. But it's Android under the covers. So folks like us, nerds, and I say that in the most nice way, we like to get in there and get our hands dirty, but not literally dirty, because I don't like to get my hands dirty, and I don't like to get calluses or any of that kind of stuff either. But since we know it's Android, then we get kind of offended that we can't get in there and do Android-y stuff. And they don't want you to do that necessarily. But once this came out, they some folks on the internet, folks way smarter than me, put out a web page that shows you how to sideload regular Android APK files onto your Fire TV stick. So now if you've got an Android device, you can, any apps that you've bought or downloaded, you can take the APK files, and there's a number of ways to get at them on a device that works, but you can get the APK files, copy them over to that, and then they'll show up on your screen, and you can do whatever with them. So you can take your favorite Android apps that you've got on your phone and your tablet and your toaster and your couch cushions or wherever you've got Android running, and you can get them running on the Fire TV stick as well. And again, $20 for this. If you've got any kind of Amazon stuff, like I buy all my music through Amazon MP3, $20 gets it on your TV. It's funny these days, these little devices, so things like this and Roku boxes, Chromecast, that kind of stuff, have become so cheap that the thing that keeps me from not buying one of these days is not the money, because again, this was $20, which is about what a cup of coffee at Starbucks cost, but it's actually HDMI ports on my TV. Now the scarcity is not the money that I have to spend on gadgets, but the places I have to plug these gadgets in. So like the TV in my office here, it's got 3 HDMI ports, or 4. I forget how many it's got. But every time I see something, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Oh, but whose HDMI port am I going to give up for this? I'm not going to give up the DVR, and I'm not going to give up, the computer one. So it ends up being, well, does this do enough to replace, to supplant the Chromecast and get that HDMI port? It's just funny that that's where we're at today. But for $20, you can get this. Highly recommended. The interface is a little screwy, but if you have Amazon content, it can't be beat. It's a good little thing for $20. But I wanted to throw that link out there. I know a bunch of you folks that listen to this have these kind of devices and play with them, and wanted to tell you guys about that as well. I was just attacked by a coaster. Oh, right. So this is a topic that actually came up a couple of weeks ago when I was in San Antonio, and I didn't get a chance to talk to it because Shane did the Netcast that night, so I did not get a chance to cover it. But it was somebody in the chat room or something had a question about cumulative updates, or CUs, and just what was meant by cumulative. What is cumulative? And this is a source of much confusion because cumulative can be interpreted a couple of different ways. And a buddy of mine just texted me, so I'm seeing him and I are getting together tomorrow. So I'm just seeing if you guys could go, all right, it's cool. So anyway, cumulative can mean a couple of different things. And I like to think of it as cumulative wide and cumulative deep. That makes no sense right now. I understand. I'll try really hard to have it make sense in the next couple of minutes. When Microsoft talks about cumulative updates, what they mean is that update accumulates every patch for that component of SharePoint. Okay. So that seems pretty straightforward, except when it's not. So when we download CUs that are, well, I would say one big monolithic file, but those don't happen anymore. So if we get the CUs that are kind of one big package, though these days it's 3 files, but one big package, and when you see it, it's one executable and then a couple of other files. That patches every component in SharePoint. And by component, I mean things like search and Excel services and core stuff, user profile service, all the different pieces. And you can see what these pieces are by going into Central Admin and Update, and you can see all the different components are listed out. Every one of those is a separate component, and every one of those is patched separately inside of SharePoint. And a cumulative update means that every component in that patch that is being updated includes all of the updates previous to it. That's what that means. So it's pretty straightforward, mostly straightforward. But when it gets confusing is when patches come out that are not the uber patch, the big patches. So that's what Microsoft calls that big patch that patches everything. They call it an uber patch. That's the goal for Microsoft. Every Patch Tuesday, every second Tuesday of the month, they want to put out an uber patch. In their heart of hearts and their soul of souls, they want to put that uber patch out for Foundation, for Server, for Project, all of it. They want to do that. But that doesn't always happen. They are more committed to putting the patch out on Patch Tuesday than they are to putting out an uber patch. Not a bad thing, but just the way that it is. So a couple of months here in the recent past, when the patch came out on Patch Tuesday, it was not an uber patch. It was not a big patch. Instead, it was a bunch of little patches that just patched individual pieces. Those patches were cumulative for the components that they patched, but they are not cumulative wide. They are cumulative deep. So if you have a patch that comes out and it wasn't an uber and there was a patch just for search, it's going to have every search fix in it from the beginning of time, but it's not going to have any core fixes in it. So it's not cumulative wide, it's cumulative deep. So when we do the uber patches, they are wide and they are deep, but when we get those individual patches, because they just couldn't get the uber patch finished by Patch Tuesday, that's when we get these patches that aren't cumulative wide. And when those patches come out, you'll see something from me that says you need to install Service Pack 1, you need to install the October CU, and then the November CU. And the reason for that is because the October CU needs to be at least installed on top of Service Pack 1, and it is an uber patch. It is wide. It patches everything. And then the November patch was not an uber patch, so we need the uber from October as a platform to get everything wide, and then the November patch just patches the things that it had that they got done before Patch Tuesday. I try to call that out really well in my wiki. If you go to toddklindt.com/SP2013builds for SharePoint 2013, or toddklindt.com/SP2010builds, there's a wiki page for every patch that has come out for each of those products, and I try to call that out on every one of them. If I miss one or I screw something up, by all means let me know. I would tell you to leave me a comment, but apparently I don't get emails when people leave me comments on my blog anymore, because I went in yesterday and I'm like, man, nobody's reading my blog, and I had a ton of comments, so I need to go through and address some of those. But if I miss that, if I screw something up, let me know. You can also hit me up on Twitter @ToddKlindt, and I will see that, or email me todd.klindt@rackspace.com, and then I will adjust that. But I try to keep on top of that because I want that to be, I don't want you guys to have to think about the patches. I'm happy thinking about the patches and making sure I know what order they go in, so that you guys, when you need to patch SharePoint, you can just go to my page, follow the instructions. But that, I hope that answers the question. Again, I wasn't in the chat room when that happened, when that question was asked, so I don't know if that answered it. But if not, give me a shout. I'm happy to help out. But I know I bag on Microsoft a lot for the patches and all that, but I think they've done a pretty good job. And the patching story has gotten better in the last 5 or 6 years, not worse. So that's a good deal. So keep up the good work, folks. On that note, I wanted to bring up in the December cumulative update, that cumulative update added some client-side object model APIs. I know we're IT pros. None of those words mean anything to us. I'm only reading them right off of my screen. That's the only way that Vesa, one of the guys, Vesa Juvanen. Sorry, Vesa. He works for Microsoft. He's one of their guys. He was an MCM. Incredibly smart guy, super smart guy. He blogged about this last week, about these new client-side object model APIs. Essentially, client-side object model, that's pretty obvious. That's the stuff that runs on the client side, so in your browser, that kind of thing, apps, those things. And he just mentioned things that you can do that they've added now to the API. So things like controlling list settings, controlling regional settings, controlling language settings, auditing, things like that. Now, you're probably thinking, who cares? That's developer stuff. None of us are developers. It's not entirely true. I have heard, I've not had anybody actually admit to this, but I have heard that there are developers that listen to this. So I wanted to throw something out to those guys if they've heard this. But for us IT pros, this is also important because the client-side object model works in the browser and works in apps. It also works in PowerShell. You see where I'm going with this? You see what I'm talking about now? So we IT pros can write PowerShell that uses CSOM. And that's great for a couple of reasons. Now, this particular patch, this is for on-prem SharePoint, and it's on-prem SharePoint 2013 with the December 2014 CU. So this is just for on-prem SharePoint, but most of this stuff works with SharePoint Online, and in his blog post, I think he mentioned that they're going to be updating SharePoint Online with this also very quickly. But you can use PowerShell to make changes with SharePoint Online because SharePoint Online does CSOM. The actual PowerShell commandlets for SharePoint Online are pretty weak. There's about 30 of them. Not nearly enough. They're not very helpful at all. But once you get past that and start using CSOM with PowerShell, now you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. So the reason I bring this up is this is another option for on-prem or online SharePoint. You can use all this crazy client-side object stuff. And there's a couple of blog posts, and I wish I had them in my notes. I'll add them to the thing that show examples of how to do this. And I did this talk when I was in Australia and New Zealand. I showed examples of how to use PowerShell and CSOM to do things with SharePoint Online and on-prem. So the great thing about this is, depending on what you need to do, potentially you can give help desk folks or IT folks permission to run PowerShell against your on-prem SharePoint without giving them the permission to log directly into your SharePoint servers. Because remember, if you're running PowerShell, regular SharePoint object model stuff, you need to be on the server. But for a variety of reasons, maybe we don't want to do that. We don't want to offer remoting. For whatever reason, we don't want that person having any local permission on that box. And so this PowerShell with CSOM is a great way to do some of those things. So I'll throw the note, the link in there. I can't remember if somebody's blog post, they had a really good, it was like Chris O'Brien, I think, had a good blog post on it about some PowerShell snippets that show how to package up CSOM. Good stuff. Something we admins need to be able to do, need to understand, because this is just another great way to get things done with on-prem SharePoint. Okay. Now fun stuff. Oh, and Lori, I forgot to start my timer, so I'm doing some math in my head. I'm at about 15 minutes, something like that. Okay. Oh, 22 minutes. Okay. Good. All right. So in the chat room, Lori's talking about sitting down at a dinner with Vesa and Spence Harbar and Chris Johnson, CJ, Mike Fitzmaurice, Fitz, and how she felt out of place. That's like one of those things where somebody says, if you could have dinner with 5 people in SharePoint, who would it be? The 5 smartest people. That's one of those tables that you would do. That's a lot of good, and across a lot of stuff, apps and IT and all that. So good stuff. Okay, so the fun stuff. So I talked earlier about I hadn't cleaned my desk off lately. Again, just been slacking here, not really getting much done. But I did want to bring one little guy up. This little fellow right here. Oh, and don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. Hey. Oh, yep, you're still there. Okay. So I mentioned last week that I had a new toy that I was talking about, that I was going to do a video and all that for. I recorded that today. I have not published it and all that kind of stuff, but it is a new tablet. I'm welcoming a new tablet to the Klindt household. This is an Insignia Flex 8. So this is the same kind of tablet along the same lines as my Dell Venue 8 Pro, the Toshiba Encore Mini, all that kind of stuff. So what's cool about this particular tablet, and I'll hold this up again, this is an 8-inch tablet, and it's one of the budget tablets. It's $100. If you go to bestbuy.com, it's $100, or I bought one at my local Best Buy. I just walked in, pulled one off the shelf. $100. All right, what does that get you? That gets you an 8-inch screen, as you can see, hence the name Flex 8. It gets you 1 year of Office 365 Professional. That would cost you $70 on your own. That gets you unlimited OneDrive. That gets you Word, Excel, Access, PowerPoint, all that kind of stuff. What does the tablet have? It's got an Intel Atom processor, 3735, and that's a little cheap processor that costs manufacturers like $10 a piece. They're in everything. They're in the little HDMI Windows sticks that are coming out. They're in the Encore. They're in a bunch of those. It's just kind of the go-to cheap chip for these things. 8-inch screen. It's got all the wireless stuff, 802.11, BGN, Bluetooth 2.13 and 4. It's got 1 gig of RAM. We'll come back to that. 16 gig of storage. We'll come back to that too. 2 megapixel cameras front and back. And this has one feature that most of these small budget devices do not have. It has a micro HDMI connector on it. So it's got a hardwire connection that you can connect a monitor, HDMI, VGA, whatever. It's got that. It also supports Miracast. So you can hook up a wired monitor or wireless monitor, your choice, which is really nice, though not both. The video chipset on here, the Intel video chipset, will only drive 2 monitors at one time. So the tablet and Miracast, or the tablet and mini HDMI, but not both. Now, I suppose you could do Miracast and mini HDMI or micro HDMI, whichever it is. But then if you've only got the touch interface, you're kind of up a creek because you shut that monitor off. But I've done both. I've not done both at once. But that works pretty well. So that is pretty nice. It's a good little thing. One other thing that this comes with that none of the other devices in its class come with is it comes with a 16 gig micro SD card. So all of these devices have a micro SD slot. None of them have anything in them except this one. This one comes with a 16 gig card, which is really nice. So I've got the onboard storage, the 16 gig storage in there. So that was really nice. Now, a couple of things about this. As you guys know, I've talked about it before. I bought a Toshiba Encore Mini a couple of months ago. It was also $99. Same specs roughly. It has a 7-inch screen, but same Intel 3735F processor, 1 gig of RAM, 16 gig of storage, Miracast, all that kind of stuff. One of the things that is different about this is the screen is much better. So I got that Toshiba Encore Mini, and it was okay, but it's $99. And I'm like, yeah, I can't expect too much for this. $99. It's cool, $99 worth. But then I went to Best Buy, and one of these was out, and it was on the shelf, and it was actually working, and it was powered up and all that. And I'm like, get out. This has got to be the wrong device. The screen on this is way too good. But it is really a really nice screen, and 8 inches as opposed to the 7 that the Encore Mini is. So I'm really excited about this. Again, it's got the 16 gig card in it. So the other thing that it has that is not common, at least with these, is it has a hardware locking button on it. So this is the screen, but it's got a button right here that locks the screen. So normally, if you tilt the screen, it resizes. But this one has a hardware button up here that locks that. So I'm going to hit it, auto rotate off. Now, all of these devices support this in software. There's a little thing you can click when you go in from the side of the Charms bar, but this has the hardware button for it, which is kind of nice. It's also got a hardware button for the Windows key, which is nice. I've gotten used to using the Charms bar Windows button, but it's nice to have the button there if you don't mind. Now, one thing I noticed today, so I'm not used to this. I'm not used to this Windows button right here. So I was playing with this thing today. This is such a ridiculous story. So I was trying to log into it, and I was holding it like this, holding it in landscape mode, and trying to type one of my passwords for something. And I was holding it, and I was holding it with my right hand and typing with my left hand. And every time I would start typing my password, the little charm would show up for the devices. So the whole project thing. Do you want to project your screen, mirror it, whatever? I'm like, why is this coming up in the middle of typing my password? This makes no sense. And I did it like 6, 7, 8 times, something like that, until I realized I was holding down the Windows button with my right thumb, and the password that I was typing had a P in it. And Windows P is the shortcut to bring up the projector stuff, which is what I was doing. So as soon as I moved my right thumb, everything was fine. So that's really the only downside I can think of to having the hardware key on here when you forget about that and you do some crazy stuff. But other than that, it's a really, I don't know, it's tough to just see this, but it's very responsive. Again, I've got a bunch of these little devices. This is a pretty good device for $100. You can order this from Amazon, but it's like $130. So that's no good. But I will have my unboxing video out for this soon. I set it up. The only downside that this had was out of the box, the battery was completely dead, and I couldn't do anything with it. So I had to let it charge. I'm an impatient man. I did not want to wait to charge this thing, but unfortunately I had to. So good news on that. You'll be hearing more from me on that over the coming weeks as I play with that a little bit more. Another thing that I wanted to mention, I didn't have this in my notes, but this would be the perfect time to talk about it, is a couple of weeks ago I did a blog post on 6 tips for Windows tablet users, and these are just things that I had picked up over the last few months using Windows tablets, and that post went over pretty well. Turns out I had some comments on that I need to go check out. But when I did that post, I actually had a OneNote that I'd been accumulating these tips in for several months, and there was way more than 6 tips. But when I was I wanted to get that blog post out, while there was still Windows 8 to talk about. But I started typing and ran out of motivation, so I capped it at 6 and then promised to write 5 more. That almost never works, but I actually did it. So this last weekend, I published 5 more tablet tips. So it's things like use, there's so many tablets here to choose from. So one of the things that you can do, if you have a tablet like the Dell Venue 8 Pro that does not have an easily accessible Windows key, it's got one, but it's up here. It's kind of in a weird spot. Let me get my screen over here. If you want, you can slide in from the side here, and there's a Windows key right there. Oh, geez. You have no idea how tough this is to do backwards. So one of the tips is using that Windows key, things like that. Some things that you can do to keep an eye on your storage, some things you can do to make the keyboard easier to use with your thumbs. So if you've got certainly small, but any size Windows tablets, check those 2 blog posts out. There's some pretty decent tips in there, if I do say so myself. All right, so another final tip here as we're winding down. Again, I told you this would be a short one. As you guys are well aware, I have about 14 Windows tablets, and I also have my beloved Windows Phone here. Got this little guy here, a Nokia Lumia 920. So close to talking myself into buying an 830, but as you can see, it's freezing rain here in Ames. It's good December weather. I don't mind it. It's good stuff. But those are my daily drivers, or what I use. So I discovered an interesting thing a couple of weeks ago when I was traveling in San Antonio. I've got a pretty good package with AT&T. I get like 15 gig of data a month between my wife and I, and she uses like 37 meg a month, and I use the rest. It works out pretty well. We got a good thing going here. And at some point, I can't remember what I was doing, I Bluetooth paired my phone to my Dell Venue 8 Pro tablet. So this is not the same tablet we were just looking at. This is a completely different tablet. But I had Bluetooth paired them together, and I don't remember what for. I was just kind of fooling around and had just kind of forgotten about it. So I was in the hotel, got on the hotel internet, and there is one word that you can use to describe all hotel internet all over the world, and that is pathetic and disappointing. And this hotel was no different. It's a good, great hotel, but the download speeds were like a meg and a half, just not good. So I was sitting there with this tablet, and I was looking at the internet connection, or the Wi-Fi connections, and there was like the hotel one, and I was like to see if anybody's got a hotspot that's unsecured. And I noticed that the internet connection sharing address for my phone was on there. And I'm like, well, that's crazy. I didn't remember leaving internet connection sharing on my phone. And I looked at my phone, and I hadn't. And you can tell, so I've got, on my settings bar up here, I've got internet connection sharing as that button over there. And it's not lit up. It wasn't turned on. I'm like, man, that is crazy. I wonder why that's showing up out. It must just be hanging out from last time. And I didn't think much of it. And then I rebooted the tablet and all that, and it showed up again. And I'm like, why is that still there? I wonder what happens if I try to connect to it. Maybe that'll flush it out and it'll tell the machine to quit looking for it. So I hit that wireless connection on my tablet, the one that should be from my phone, and it worked. The internet fired up. I'm like, this is impossible. How does this happen? Did it connect to the hotel internet somehow? But I hadn't put my code in. I was perplexed, but it worked, and the tablet was on the internet. So turns out, if you Bluetooth pair a Windows phone and a Windows 8 device, like a tablet, or I assume a desktop, but that makes no sense, a tablet or a laptop or something like that, your device will cache the phone's internet connection sharing settings, and if you hit that internet connection over Bluetooth, it will pipe back to your phone and turn internet connection sharing on for you, and then connect to that network when it comes online. That is crazy, and this sounds like one of those things that everybody but me knew, and like everybody's been doing this for a year and a half now, and just didn't ever tell me because it's just that obvious. But I had seen, and it makes sense now when I think about that, because I had seen a couple of times where when I was my process before this had always been to go to my phone, unlock my phone, do the thing, turn the internet connection sharing on, tap my foot, wait for it to get loaded up. It gets loaded up. I go back to my tablet. I hit the connection, and it would give me an error that would say something like could not start internet connection sharing. And I'm like, well, who's starting what? That makes no sense. Well, it turns out my tablet was trying to start it back on my phone, and my phone was saying, hey, dummy, I'm already started, and it was already going up. So that's pretty cool. So now I've gone and paired my phone with all my tablets, and now if I ever need internet connection, I can just hit it. I don't need to get my phone out of my pocket or do whatever. It'll just fire it up on my phone for me. So again, it sounds like something that everybody but me that has a Windows phone knew about, but I thought I would share it anyway for like the one other guy who's been living under a rock and didn't know that. Okay, so yeah, or girl, that's right. I shouldn't be sexist. Girls can live under rocks too. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Girls can live under rocks. Yeah, I got girls, they act like they live under a rock. The other thing, I shouldn't, this is rotten timing, and I should have, I'll put this in the notes, but I've got this Lumia 920, greatest phone in the world, except when you drop it. It does wireless charging, and it does the key wireless charging, which is QI. And I love the wireless charging. I would not get a phone that didn't have wireless charging anymore. And I was poking around on Amazon last week or 2 weeks ago, and there was a cheap $40 wireless charging dock. And so I had to buy one. I love, so this is a dock, and it uses micro USB, the thing that we've got 400 of on all of our desks. And it's just wireless charging. So I just drop the old phone in it, and it starts charging. So these have been out for a while. That's nothing new. But the last one I bought was like $70, and this one was $40. So I'll put a link to this in show notes. If you've got a phone that does wireless charging for $40, grab one of those docks. You'll love it. I use one like this. I've got it sitting next to my table. I don't have a desk clock or like a bedside clock anymore. I've got this, and I've got Glance set up to automatically dim my display at 10 o'clock and all that. Oh, love it. And then there's just no wires. There's no fussing with it. So that's a good thing too. Okay, enough of that. I've gone off notes. All right. So shameless self-promotion. Got a couple of things going on here. Yeah. So in the chat room when I dropped my phone, Lori said, "Don't break it." She said that because I've already broken one. So this is sad. I think you guys have probably seen this before, but it makes me sad to look at. So this was actually my original Nokia 920, except I dropped it in my garage, broke the screen, so then I had to get a second Lumia 920, and Lori was actually the one. That's her old phone. So she's sick of sending me phones. That's why she doesn't want me to break that one. That's why we can't have nice things. Just throw it on the ground in my garage. Anyway, all right, shameless self-promotion. So for the rest of the year, obviously not doing anything because there's only like a week left in the year. Next year, though, I'm hitting the ground running. I've already got a bunch of stuff set up, and I'm pretty excited about it. So the first thing is SP TechCon, and that is February 8th through the 11th in Austin, Texas. So now it looks like SP TechCon is going to be in Austin and Boston. That cracks me up. I know that's like a 12-year-old boy thing, but Austin and Boston, That's great. Who doesn't love that? So February 8th through the 11th in Austin, Texas, you can go to sptechcon.com and find out all about that. Get signed up and do all those crazy things. Shane and I are doing 4 sessions at SPTechCon. We are doing a SharePoint 2013 administration skill, which is kind of the same session that we did in Boston. Oh man, at the last SPTechCon. We'll update it for new stuff, but we're doing that one. We're doing upgrading from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013, parts 1 and 2. Last year we did it as a half-day session. This year the half-day sessions are on Sunday, which means I have to travel on Saturday right after I went to work on Friday. So we did not choose to do a half-day session, but we are doing parts 1 and 2. So you got that. And then our 4th session is troubleshooting techniques. And these are just techniques that I've picked up over the years on how to troubleshoot SharePoint, tools, things like that. We're going to go through all that and show you how to fix some broken SharePoint. So that's sptechcon.com. The other conference that I am for sure speaking at next year, and this is a biggie, the SharePoint Evolutions Conference, and you can go to SharePointEvolutionConference.com, and that is Steve Smith's big hurrah he puts on in London, and it is a show of magnificent proportions. This is the first time I've ever been able to make it to this one, and I am excited. Very excited. That is April 20th through the 22nd of next year, and I am doing the same 2 upgrade sessions there that I'm doing at SPTechCon. So I like to think of SPTechCon as a practice run for SharePoint Evolution. So if you're thinking about, if you're in the European neighborhood, and you're looking for something to do the 3rd week of April, you could do a lot worse than going to the SharePoint Evolution Conference in London and hearing me talk about upgrading SharePoint. And thanks to Steve for graciously allowing me to be a part of that. I begged a bunch over in Stockholm last year, and I think that's really what made it happen. And I sucked up to his wife, Sharon. I think that helped also. So, I do what I can. But thanks, everybody. We're going to wind it down here. We're a good 40 minutes in. I forgot to start my timer this week. I got to put that in my prep notes, too. My God, this thing's just falling off the rails. So thanks to everybody. Have happy holidays for those of you that celebrate Christmas and all those, Hanukkah and all those things going on right now. Whatever your holiday of choice is right now, I hope it's a good one. Next week so we'll be at the 29th. I'm going to take next week off. Again, it's the slacker in me. I haven't been to work in like 10 days. And so I think I'm going to take next week off. So, which means I probably won't get this thing published and all that until like 3 days before the next one. But I'm planning on January 5th having a brand new one. I'm not going to the New Media Expo this year, which would have been that week. So be ready for it. In 2 weeks, we're going to do a brand new show, the first one of 2015. But thanks, everybody. We've had a great year. I do want to give a final shout out. I don't know if this is still going on, but Lori Gowan's been doing my birthday charity deal, and that everybody in the chat room has seen this 100 times already, but I'm going to put it in there just the same. So that's coming up. My birthday's next month. My birthday's a month from yesterday. So this is the last month of anyway. So Lori's doing that. You can go to pointgowan.com/TK charity. That's point, like point your finger. Lori Gowan, her last name, GOWIN.com/TK charity. And so that's something that the Netcast hooligans have been doing for 5 years now, however long this has been. Dan Usher initially started it. Lori's been picking up the torch. I'm not involved. I'm involved. I'm not involved. I struggle with how to do all that. But basically, just me trying to make people aware of giving to charities. And this is a great time to talk about it, a great time of the year. But it's not to any specific charity for me. It in no way, shape, or form benefits me. It's not going to Todd Klindt's benevolent Lego fund or anything like that. Just asking people to give to whatever charity they want to give to. And Lori's been talking about all that, and she's been leading that charge. There's already a bunch of people signed up. Already several $100s have been donated, so couldn't be more excited about that. But if you're looking for something, do that. If you do it before the end of the year, it's tax deductible. So for every $5 you send to charity, you don't have to send one to the government. at least in the U.S. That's a good deal. So appreciate Lori and Dan for doing that. It means a lot to me. And I know I will be doing some of the same, so I appreciate that. But thanks again to everybody. You guys have a great Christmas. You guys have a happy New Year, a joyous Hanukkah, a kickin' Kwanzaa, a great Festivus. Air those grievances, get that all out there, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks on January 5th, 2015. Thanks. Have a good night.